Hello, I'm here continuing with the build of this data cleaner file available currently at workaholic.group in this page under Systems Data Cleaner Files. A first year subscription includes all updates in that year, and normally renewals will be at a substantially discounted price. As I said, this is only the third session building out this file, so it's very immature at the moment with some very basic features, but I hope that will change very substantially over time. This file was designed for you to pretty much very openly copy, paste, and see very transparently without any black boxes, processes which will be tools for you in your FileMaker systems, so you can either import data directly into this file so that you don't have to do any modification or development work yourself. And you can just delete and import and export and replace data, or you can copy and paste the script steps or scripts or functions that you want out of the file. Since the second build and with this third build file, I have made some very small changes. I've added some fields regarding email validation. Generally, lots of systems over-validate or over-control, over-restrict what email addresses can be accepted. And I think really and when it comes to standards, the standards organization for determining email addresses basically just specifies that there needs to be an @ sign. There needs to ideally be some text preceding the @ sign, and there has to be some text after the @ sign. And in theory, some servers will accept just a TLD, but I think it's considered bad practice to only include a TLD and to not have a domain in addition to a TLD after an @ sign in an email address. So really, an email addresses are one area where, at least when it comes to static information and relying on a runtime or relying on whatever system you're using at the time without sending messages out or without having more active validation methods, I would take a very cautionary approach and just use warnings to flag to users where email addresses likely have issues. So the few scripts that I added off screen without recording, or I did record, but unfortunately I had to throw the recording away, just to give a warning if text has no @ symbol, a warning if text has no text before an @ symbol, and if text has no text after an @ symbol. So all of those can help with identifying potential problems in email addresses, such as here where there is no @ symbol, there's just an AT in brackets. So a warning has been flagged here. And because there's a warning, this file and the script that controls what displays as final results from input data isn't outputting an email address there because it's considered a sufficiently serious issue that the email address is almost definitely or totally definitely not going to be valid. There are more ambiguous situations like this one where maybe the email address would want to be kept for some internal systems or something like that, but really this is highly likely to be invalid or reasonable for a standard contact record. So we can see a warning here in case a manual override is wanted for the email address, or to at least make sure that this email address is not used by the system automatically. But a next much more, I won't say challenging area, but a more complicated area that we can deal with within the system itself, and where we can build features that are not dependent on external sources are where it comes to numbers, particularly currency numbers, particularly amounts. It's a quite complicated area that requires both recognizing numbers as numbers and recognizing numbers as text, both at the input stage and the interpretation stage. And at the normalization stage, we normally want to get to a number. But when it comes to outputs, we don't always want to output numbers. We also want to output numbers in different formats. And it's quite typical for people in FileMaker, for example, to rely on layout features that help to format outputs, but then that can be unreliable for exports. It can be inconsistent. You can lose those formatting changes. It may not really be dynamic or flexible enough, or it may not quickly enough get you what you want. So I want to, as much as possible, build different features for different currency input and output options within scripts and within raw number and text fields, so that you can get pretty much whatever you need and want. So there are many considerations when it comes to number inputs, especially when they're as messy as this quite good sample data that has been given to us by ChatGPT. So we even have a mix of European style or European use of periods and commas here versus a generally rest of the world use of periods and commas. So here, for example, when it comes to a euro amount, the amount intended is highly likely to be 1,234 euros 0.5 or 1,234.50, as we may say. So in a lot of Europe, a period will be used as a thousand separator, and a comma will be used before any decimal places for a currency. Of course, for a Brit, that is, and probably Americans and most people in the rest of the world, that is quite counterintuitive. And we can see here, for example, that there's an amount of £1,200 where almost definitely that comma will be intended as a thousand separator, and the period comes for decimal places, for pennies, not pounds. We also have some other considerations, such as a E, whether lowercase or uppercase, may be taken or interpreted, or at least needs to be flagged as a warning as being an exponent, which can be interpreted into a standard number rather than necessarily just rejected. We at least would want to flag to the user that the E may just be to a power of 10. And then we have other considerations, such as the euro sign being relatively unique. I'm assuming, I think probably very safely, that the euro is the only currency that uses this symbol, whereas when it comes to the dollar, there are all kinds of dollar currencies that use the dollar symbol. So when we see the dollar symbol, we can't assume, for example, that it's meant to represent the US dollar. So here we have Australian dollars, Singapore dollars, we have Hong Kong dollars, but without a symbol. C dollar is probably Canadian dollar. But if we were to see a dollar on its own, we wouldn't necessarily want to take a dollar on its own as a sign of the currency being US dollars. Similarly, the pound sign, although less prevalent, including in Anglo countries now, I think the pound sign is in use in some places. I think there's an Egyptian pound, maybe even a Kenyan pound, but I don't know whether they use the pound symbol. We can have a quick look. Egyptian pound symbol. and Kenyan pound symbol. That's assuming can you even have pounds? I think they might still have a concept of shillings. Yes, so Egypt uses the same pound symbol as the UK does for its currency. And okay, Kenya doesn't have a pound. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. So in addition to wanting to normalize numbers into their correct form, their accurate form, a universal form, at least for our system purposes, we also want to normalize currencies and their symbols. So there is an ISO standard for currencies. So ISO standard for currencies. I can't remember what the number is. 4207 maybe 4217. And that is normally going to be a 3-letter code. I don't think there is an ISO standard for currency symbols, but that doesn't mean to say that there aren't any standard bodies, including potentially at the national level, for setting a currency symbol. But ideally, what we would want to do is to get all of our currencies into an ISO 4217 code. So the ISO organization does freely publish information such as this, I think in XML and XLS format, or at least 2 formats, which is not which is potentially fine for us. I can potentially consider trying to import an XML file. I think when it comes to currency standards, Swiss organizations are quite dominant, which makes some sense given their prevalence in banking and international banking standards and development. And I think that there is a Swiss body which publishes a CSV of these currency standards. So ISO, if I look for ISO 4217 as CSV download, okay, this is annoying because I'm logged in already, and if I have to log in again, you might see my login. Let's see whether I can log in without you seeing it, and hopefully I don't have to do any work on the video. Okay, that's probably not giving away too much. Using one password there, working very well. So, okay, so ISO 4217 CSV download. Who are those people? Do we trust them as a consistent source? International Aid and Transparency Initiative sounds okay. I don't know who on GitHub is publishing this. Is it GitHub itself? If so, that might be nice. Data sets. Okay. That may be a nice source. Swiss Standards Institute. I don't think it really is a institute, but it may help get me there. I think it's called something. I think it's a sub-organization called Six or something like that. So think I want to get a currency list into this file, but I also want to leave instructions for any easy update of the currency list from, and perhaps in multiple forms. Okay, 6 is Global Financial Data Standards page. Okay. So who are 6 group? Are they part of the Swiss government? When we're looking for sources of data, especially that are going to be this important and this high risk in terms of the potential impact of getting things wrong, we want to use the most reliable, universal, consistent sources that we know will go on and on and on. Consortium-owned company, okay, owned by 120 financial institutions. Okay, well, that sounds fine, but I feel like getting the ISO 4217 source directly might be even better. So let's see. I assume this is the correct website. I use so many API endpoint based services now, and I do insist on doing so much in CSVs that I don't think I've worked with XLS or XML in FileMaker for years and years and years. Okay. Users have the option to subscribe to a paid service that automatically provides updates and supplies the data in formats ready to use for a wide range of applications. I think that includes CSV, XML, and XLS. But I read somewhere that this was free. So they mention, okay, so 6 is directly linked to by ISO. So there seems to be some outsourcing of some kind, but let me also look at the ISO store. Country codes collection. Okay. Sample. Okay, I don't know whether this is meant to be what kind of codes this is meant to be referring to. Okay, so this is just for Brazil as a sample, and they have a sample for New Zealand and Switzerland, but the purchase would include all of them, and it includes language codes, name standardizations, areas or regions, which seem to be called subdivisions, territories. Okay, I don't know how we got to that from currencies. Looking at a different standard. So within their store, let's just look for currencies. Okay, I feel that the reason we got taken there is that potentially potentially 4217 is only served by or provided directly by 6. Okay, they seem to be claiming here that they're responsible for ISO currency codes, and ISO's own website seems to imply that by taking us here. So, okay. XLS, XML. They also have fund codes, and list under list 2 and list 3 is historical, so that may be useful. So if I download this, what am I getting? Okay, that's just a sort of circular of amendments, and then you can see all past amendments. With notes, without the data being highly structured. Okay, I see. Let's just get the XLS and the XML, and let's see what import records we have. XML data source, file. I'm hoping we can easily create a new sheet. Okay. Use an XSL style sheet. I think we don't need that. Information is not enough to proceed with import export. Okay. What if I drag this XLS file to FileMaker? Will that help me? Fund. Okay, but even though we didn't this does actually include currency and funds. Maybe list 2 is just the same funds or fund code separately, or maybe it's different information. So anyway, let's try active. And let's say 6 ISO 4217 currency codes, list 1 converted. Okay. So I'm using record 4 as the field name. Why is there more data in some? Allegedly, there are up to 39 fields. Okay, well that helped to solve the problem. I'm going to, on the Mac, press Command-Shift-D to copy the table into the master file. I won't change the names for now, but I will get the name used for the file that FileMaker created for me, and I'll put it in the comment as a reminder. Now for importing the data, I can cheat and import from the FileMaker file, but I just want to see whether I can't really remember how to import directly from a XML file. Maybe if I do it this way. No. getting this error when attempting FileMaker import from a .xml file. What to do? Okay, FileMaker cannot directly import raw XML unless it's in a specified format FileMaker understands, or you provide a style sheet. Do I want to provide a style sheet? Possibly not. What format is invalid? I assume it is. User format if there is no style sheet. Okay. Can I use FileMaker to create a style sheet for me? I think I have interrogated XML APIs in the past, and it was terrible. I think I wrote a scraper interpreter myself and wrote functions because I got tired of this kind of issue and didn't want to work it out because it seemed very backward. Okay. They say no. Okay, GPT is saying no, but also yes. Let's see. Can we export when there are no records? File, export records, choose XML. Okay. No records. Grammar, FMP XML result. Use a XSL style sheet. I thought that's what it was meant to be giving me. Use FileMaker to export a XML. So I think we're exporting the XML plus XSLT template. Simulate by exporting from FileMaker. Create a single layout table in FileMaker with a few sample records. Okay, maybe I need the sample records. Okay, maybe I just don't need to use an XSL style sheet. Has one just been created? Sort by date added. I don't know. Looks very sketchy. Did that just not work because we had no records? Attempt to. So years ago, I might have read about these things and tried to work out what's going on, how to do them, spent minutes, hours, days, weeks, maybe months, and not get very far, and that was was before having the benefit of GPT, and now even with GPT, I can't be bothered. Dot XSLT. That okay. It will give you a working example XML. Okay. An idea of how it's structured. Something to compare. Oh my goodness. Okay. I won't accept that file type. What am I? Okay. Why does the output file not have an extension? Is the extension supposed to be .xslt? By the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, this is being recorded on a 48-inch screen, 3840 by 2160 pixels. So if you want to follow along, you almost definitely have to have the highest quality data streaming option selected, and you may have to be on a big screen or zoom in. Sorry, but I would be horrifically more inefficient if I didn't lay things out in this way. I've already logged in. GPT seems to think I'm running on the free version. Maybe I can just refresh. I don't want to pull up. Okay, let's just try again. Or I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with that XSLT. If that is even what it is. I think I'm embarrassing myself too much here, and I think what I'm going to do is to just import the record from the file that was just created by FileMaker. I don't know why I can't make it that easy for me here, but okay. Import. What I'll at least do is try and retain and respect the names. So at least we have a currency name. The entity is generally the country, but not always. Entity sounds a relatively neutral enough term. I'm a bit surprised they haven't used region. I'm holding down Control and down, by the way. There seem to be some blank records here at the end. Maybe that's what's taking them. Okay, we've got more information. Let's go for table view. Minor units. Okay, there's a numeric code for each currency. Okay, so we have a list to validate against, and okay, let's start playing with it. So am I in my correct version? All fields, which includes the imported messy data and a lot of the check processes and outputs, in theory. So the first thing I use this for is to create a manual user override for the currency. So on a Mac, Command-Shift-D to open the Manage Database window. and I am going to write here currency ISO, is it 4217? Manual override. And while I'm here, I will create a updates on refresh and a final updates on refresh. So the updates on refresh will be generally for me before a manual override. The final will be after a manual override. I could also have a final selection so that I can have a manual override to select a manual override or other option. That probably doesn't make any sense now, so I will come back to it in an example. Okay, hopefully the fields have been added to the layout, and I will very simply set the manual override as a pop-up which uses values from those imports. Is it the alphabetic code that I want or the currency? I think the currency was a description name. So let's see. Display values from here. Show all values. Sort based on the code and English, just in case it's not already. And then I try to give value lists like this, the same name as the fully qualified table and field name. Alphabetic code and active currency. Okay, now if we want to we can select a manual override currency here. Okay. Now, these currencies, how do we want to interpret them? If we get a match, then great. If we don't get a match, it maybe depends on the currency. So let's say here is I'll try and get a euro symbol from my keyboard. I might struggle. I'm just holding down the option key and scrolling across the numbers on my keyboard here. On my UK keyboard here, it seems to be option 2, symbol used for any currency other than euros. Okay, I'll rely on ChatGPT telling me no. Okay, so I'm going to create a script that says convert currencies, convert currency information high certainty to an ISO 4217 code, and I will copy some elements from a simple script from a simple prior script, and I will make use of the value first. Maybe I'll delete all of this in a minute, but for example, if we were to have, if the value first literally equaled the euro symbol with nothing else, which means there should be nothing else there, then we can say that the final result should be EUR. That's the currency code, standard currency code for euros. And then we can do this type of thing again and again and again. We can exit the script there, outputting the final result. And then we can do this with all manner of symbols where we have confidence. And of course, there can be all kinds of ways of doing this, but let us say that for me, HK and dollar symbol, it's almost definitely going to be the Hong Kong dollar with high certainty. Euro, are we going to accept euro as euro? As in, are we going to accept EU-RO as euro? Yes, I think we can. What else do we have? We also want to validate these against the list, which I'll get into soon. US dollar question mark. Now, to me, any question mark is a red flag. So I think I'll say that if pattern count value first, if there's a question mark anywhere, then we want to make sure we output nothing if possible. And now, probably this would already be taken care of at the end of our script if none of the conditions are met. But we can include this just to show some intentionality that we've considered it. So we can say section may be unnecessary, but included here for clarity of intention. Okay, NGN. What is NGN? Naira, Nigerian, a Nigerian Naira. Okay, that's the second time we've looked at Nigerian data. I guess it's the same row as the telephone number where we manually input the country code 234 for Nigeria, which I had to look up. Okay. Any other cases of great interest? No, not necessarily. Now, do we want to C dollars always default to Canadian dollar? Maybe, maybe not. Do we want S dollar to always default to Singapore dollar? Maybe not. So I'll just look in this list as well to see if there are any examples of currencies abbreviations. See, AR dollar. To me, two characters may be good enough to give a definite alternative or to give a definite currency code. Argentine peso. Okay, I'm okay with that. So I'll try and keep these in alphabetical order. AR dollar. I'm happy to say that AR dollar symbol is always Argentine peso. Now, is this a Korean won? So let's see whether it's only South Korea. No, North Korea also uses that. symbol. So let's include a note here maybe. Typo there. And say North and South Korea have the same symbol for different currencies. Let's say each of their different currencies. Slightly awkward wording. That would do for now. So we can't be sure, we can't have high confidence normalizing that symbol. RS, is that a, okay, I thought that was going to be rand, but it's Indian rupees. But RS sounds to me like it could be many things. Okay, and it's used in multiple countries. So, okay, let's have another note for the future. So, RS, or similar really, RS dot. Let's just paste all of that. Okay. KR, is that Danish kroner? All kinds of kroner. Oh dear. Even worse. So we can't be relying on that. Okay. Oh, maybe we can shorten that a little. Okay. AU now, AUD and NZD, I think I'm okay with. Standardizing. Check that you all can't see what was in my GPT. Okay. AU dollar will standardize. Wrong one. What am I doing? I need to duplicate that first. Alphabetical order. AU dollar is always Australian dollar. NZ dollar is always New Zealand dollar. ZL. Always the Polish zloty. Any other currencies historically use ZL? There have been multiple. Okay, this is a bit tricky. I have worked with financial institutions which use old data, which differentiate between currencies in different time periods, so I'm not going to accept it. Although a similar issue could be true of some of the other currencies I've accepted. I don't know. So, hard to be perfect today. So let's copy all that. And I think it's okay to use or. Notice how these pattern counts all don't have a equals 1 or more than 0. So I have to go and have those everywhere now. Greater than 0. Okay, first one of the lot, second one of the lot, third one of the lot. Okay. It's greater than 0, greater than 0. Okay. Good. So we can already get some normalization. Let's move all of these over to the original currency information. Where have those fields gone? There they are. Where? Okay. Let's see. I'm going to my import refresh record script, and I don't think any of these relate to currencies. I'm going to put this at the top in case I want to debug soon. I'm going to use my script regarding currencies. Did I save it so that the name comes up? No, maybe not. Convert currency, I need to save it. Search for convert currency. Parameter will be the import currency, currency import. And here we want to output into currency updates on refresh. Okay, let's see what we get. I'm running the context agnostic script. Now I'm only meant to put out currencies or nothing. Why are we getting yeses? Just doing a search for yes. I didn't delete. Okay, a great example of always keep scripts very, very clean. Don't leave things until later, they'll be forgotten about, and then screw everything up. Those script steps were not meant to be there. Great. Now, it can be very tempting here to, if I, for example, want to check whether this euro is in the table, it can be very tempting to use SQL. But I really don't want to, because if we change any names, the SQL will break. And that's rubbish, and it loses one of the advantages that FileMaker gives us. So I'm going to I'm going to write a script here that goes for new window, goes and checks for the, goes and opens the currency window, enters find mode, makes sure that the get window mode, okay, if the get window mode doesn't equal 1, which I think is the find mode, then we would exit. Then we would close the window and exit because something has gone wrong and we don't want to accidentally overwrite data. We would exit the script with nothing. However, if that's fine, we can continue and we can set the currency field. Sorry, I tend to click around all over the place. Alphabetic code. We're putting in the value that we got as a parameter. We're going to perform the find, and hopefully we only have one result, but we can make this resilient for someone who just imports and imports and imports without replacing the data. So even if there's repetition, it can be fine. We can probably just get the first result. So as long as the, okay, so if the last error equals 0, then we can set the final result. Okay, if get last error is 0 and get found count is greater than 0, so at least 1 was found, then the final result can be the value because it's been found in the table. And then we can close this window, and then we can exit the script with the final result. Otherwise, we just close the window so that the script can then continue. So, of course, this should be run in debug first, but I'm trying to be very aggressive here. So let's see if it works. Context agnostic script. Oh no. What did I do? Is the script paused? Okay, I think maybe all I did was not turn the pause off. Hopefully. Entered find mode and paused. Okay. Let's risk it again. Now, no records match this find. Okay, well, right. Okay, what I've done here is we're running the loop, but on everything. So, why am I getting a dialogue? I didn't think I really clicked enough times there to get through all of the records. Okay, that's a wonderful result. It seems. Euros, euros. Hong Kong, funky Hong Kong dollars, Hong Kong dollars. Funky euro, euro. Good US dollars. Bad US dollars didn't come through. Wonderful, it worked. But why did I have to deal with the error messages? is it just because I did not set error capture on? Let's see, to suppress the results window. Yes. Good. Now it will run without annoying the user. Good. Wonderful. Now, what shall we do with the rest? Someone is asking, is it CMY? Well, paid by Ly or Leeway, from a number that looks to me like it could be a US number, but might be a China number, for a Chinese address, or an address written in Chinese, BJ may mean Beijing, 12.3, that's a very small amount of yuan. It's only, I don't know, like something around $1, or in that region. Everyone else has paid more. I don't think it is CMY. Because why is it so much lower than anywhere else? Although this is 0.1 euros. Okay, so what I'd do is I'll add a field that includes note. And I will put that note there. And I will pretend that I checked. CNY. There are different types of CNY, by the way. CNH. And, well, there are different types of UN, but I won't get into it now. Checked. Records. Confirmed is CMY. Now, if I refresh, by the way, I want my context agnostic to ideally commit records wherever I am, at the very least. Okay. So if not empty, the currency manual override, then we will use the manual override because that is what it is there for. Otherwise we use our script. So I'm trying to make that CMY manual override go into the final result or into the calculated result. Okay, great. FR, France, French franc, euro. What year is this supposed to be? I'll just make up the same. Wrong one. Sorry. Crypto. Okay, brilliant. That's something that we can come to. We can have a custom currency that isn't in the list. Okay, let's do it now in the simplest way possible. Allow other. But which crypto is it? A Satoshi. What is the symbol for a... Well, we don't know whether the currency is a Satoshi. Oh, BTC for Bitcoin. Okay. Well, we could put Bitcoin in our currency list, but not from the ISO 4217 list. Okay. BTC. Other. BTC. That's not in ISO 4217 list. Okay. Then we have a currency for every record. I accidentally created a new record by clicking the bottom row addition there, so I've pressed Command E to delete the record. Okay, and the top one, UK person paying in dollars, currency symbol only, US or other. Well, who is this person? John Smith. With a UK number in Baker Street. I'm going to say it's a typo. Checked records, confirmed is GBP, Great British Pound Sterlings, dollar was a typo. Okay, now we have a currency for every record. Apart from this one. Okay. Peter Parker. Sounds American, doesn't he? US-ish format number, Ingram Street, Forest Hills, New York City, New York, zip code 11375. Yes, I'm going to pretend that I checked the records. Checked records, confirmed is USD. Okay. Everyone has a currency. It will allow us to move on to numbers, or that allows us to move on to numbers. This column, which can get very messy. I will leave it for the next session.